The Adventures of Mr. Bean. Treasure. Chapter 2. Back in his room, Mr. Bean closed the curtains so no one could see what he was up to. Then he plunked the bag on his table, took hold of Teddy, and untied the rope. Taking a deep breath, Mr. Bean reached inside the bag and hoped whatever was in it didn't bite. "Ah!" cried Mr. Bean. He seen something bright and bony grinning up at him inside. It looked like a skull. Teddy didn't seem scared at all, though. He just sat there on the table. Feeling a little bit foolish, Mr. Bean looked at his discovery again. Then he chuckled. It was a skull, all right, a skull and crossbones on a pirate's hat. Yes, and look, there was a pirate's eye patch. With a whoop of glee, Mr. Bean set the dusty hat on his head, put on the patch, and stuck Teddy on his shoulder like a long John Silver sped parrot. "Aha!" he said, swaggering around the room. "Ha-ha!" But Teddy didn't really seem to like perching like a parrot. Rolling his eyes, Mr. Bean sat back down in front of the big black bag. The next thing he found was a small photograph in an old and ornate frame. Mr. Bean supposed the photo must be old too, since it seemed to be from the days when the world was in black and white. Mr. Bean put the eye patch on Teddy so he could look at the picture with both eyes. It showed a podgy young boy about 10 years old. Mr. Bean supposed he must have lived here in the house a long, long time ago. The boy was standing in a garden in front of two funny-shaped trees. He wore old-fashioned clothes and a pirate's hat was proudly placed on his head. Mr. Bean looked closely at the picture, the same pirate's hat that he was wearing. With a gurgle of excitement, Mr. Bean burrowed about in the belonging bag for the next thing to find. This was just like Christmas. He heaved out a heavy little black box, which rattled like there was something inside. He shook it about, tock, 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 but the box was locked. He took a lingering look at the lock itself, but he couldn't see a key. Where could it be? With a shrug, Mr. Bean reached in for the next prize. It was an old jigsaw puzzle. Chuckling to himself with glee, he showed Teddy this latest loot. The picture pasted to the lid showed an old toy shop full of train sets, dolls, toy soldiers, and much, much more. Rubbing his hands with glee, Mr. Bean set to work straight away. This bit went there, that bit went here, those bits went in the corner, and as for this piece of the puzzle, he frowned. It looked like the piece should fit just here between the toy dog and the dimpled doll, but no matter how hard he pressed on the piece, it wouldn't go in. Mr. Bean thumped it with his fist. No good. He took off his shoe and hammered the heel against the puzzle piece. Still no good. In desperation, he took a large saucepan in both hands and banged it down on the puzzle. But no, it was still no good at all. He was about to throw the whole puzzle out of the window when a thought struck him. Carefully, he turned the piece upside down. It plopped into place perfectly. Said Mr. Bean. He looked sharply at Teddy to be sure the bear wasn't laughing at him, but luckily it seemed his furry friend hadn't noticed a thing. He was staring with one beady eye at the mysterious locked trunk, but Mr. Bean found it best to focus on one puzzle at a time, and so decided to stick with the jigsaw. All went well as he put the pieces in place, until he realized, with a groan of despair, that a single solitary piece was missing from the middle. He upturned the box, hoping it would be caught inside, but there was nothing there. He looked under the trunk, beneath the photograph, even behind Teddy's eye patch, in case the bear was playing a trick on him. In desperation, he upturned the dusty sack and shook it over the carpet. But while a spinning top and something boring and brown came clattering out, the jigsaw piece was in there. Mr. Bean was about to bawl and bellow at the top of his lungs when he noticed the brown and boring thing again. Maybe it wasn't so boring after all. It was an old package of parchment tied up with string. In one corner was a faded black scribble in the shape of a skull and crossbones. With a gasp and a jiggle, Mr. Bean scooped up the package and tore it open. With this delicious distraction, he soon forgot the jinxed jigsaw. Moments later, Mr. Bean was looking at another creased and crumbling piece of parchment, and in the top corner was a picture of an old-fashioned treasure chest with gold coins spilling out of it. His hands started shaking so much he could barely see what else was drawn on the old brown paper. But with a growing grin he saw it was an old Victorian fireplace with a large X drawn over it. X marked the spot. If he could find a fireplace, he'd find a pile of treasure. Mr. Bean looked longingly over at his own fireplace. It was old, but it was a different shape to the one in the picture. Even so, he was sure he'd seen a fireplace like that before. He let Teddy have a look. The bear stared at it blankly, his paws hanging down as if pointing at the table. How unhelpful, thought Mr. Bean. There was no fireplace on the table, or under the table for that matter. But he thought again, and a sly smile spread over his face. Under the floor, beneath the table, in Mrs. Wicked's room downstairs, that must be where the treasure-stuffed fireplace was, and Teddy had known it straight away. Giving his bear a fond pat on the head and a big thumbs up to the boy in the photograph, Mr. Bean stood back up. He grabbed his torch, snatched his eye patch back off Teddy, and crept away downstairs, truly on a treasure trail. The end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!